Peach Blossom Det. Chapter 4. It was now dusk. As the sun set, dazzling golden red rays broke through the window. Given that it was the end of summer and the beginning of autumn, the evening breeze was cool, with a lingering touch of lotus scent from the small pond. Such was the charm of this scene. Mu Ruian fixed his eyes on me, his expression a basin of rippling clear water that now stilled like a mirror. As expected, the reincarnation of Tianchu was still as composed as he had been in the heavenly court, carrying himself with an air of aloofness. His heart may have been in turmoil, but he kept up appearances and committed to his role as an invalid. Mu Ruian spoke, his voice mild and gentle. His first words surprised me. Is young Master Li the legendary Little Lord of the Eastern Commandery? The incarnation of a Star Lord of whom they speak? Rumors sure spread fast. I released Tianchu's hand and flashed a smile. The Tiger Star's descent to the mortal world is merely the nonsense of a charlatan. How could there be such a rare, mystical phenomenon in the world? The real reincarnation of a Star Lord is the one sitting on the bed, you, exalted Lord, who dragged this immortal Lord into this drudgery of a job with you. Mu Ruian stood up from the bed. This humble one heard of it by chance while passing a rural inn. He smiled. Please pardon me if I have offended you in any way, young Master Li. I moved closer to Mu Ruian and looked down into his eyes. You are already mine now. There's no need for such politeness between us. Tianchu Xingjun, please brace yourself when you hear these harsh and sudden words. Mu Ruian's face sallowed further. The refreshing evening breeze made its way into the chamber, sending the thin fabric of his single robe fluttering. It looked ready to blow him over. Still that mild, courteous smile remained upon his face. He maintained his refined bearing. Sighing internally, this immortal lord watched his pale lips part and close as he said to me, "It's this humble one's privilege to set foot within the compound of the Prince of the Eastern Commandery's manor today. Presumably, you must have long known my whereabouts for my entire journey. I'm eternally grateful to you for saving my life on the mountain outside the city." I interrupted him. Don't give me the spiel like, you are unable to repay my kindness. You will be with me for a long time to come, you have all the time in the world to repay me any way you please. Mu Ruian's sallow complexion blanched even more. He covered his mouth with his sleeve and coughed a few times. With a forced, bitter smile, he said, "An honest man does not speak in riddles, so I shall be frank. I, Mu Ruian, am a wanted fugitive. In bringing me to the Prince of Eastern Commandery's manor, young Master Li must have your own arrangement. This humble one, however, is a man at the end of his rope, and my life and death are at the mercy of heaven. I'm not deserving of the great effort you have expended thus." Such was the bitterness in his tone. Having stared at his figure faltering on the verge of collapse for so long, this immortal lord simply had to reach out to support him. Mu Ruian, unable to step back in time, stiffened. "Tch, this immortal lord was just buttering you up. It's not like I'd really do anything to you. But I had to play the role of this villainous character to the hilt." Partially supporting and partially hugging Tianchu, I said, "Ruian, you are an intelligent man, so I won't keep the truth from you. When I captured you, I had originally meant to escort you back to the capital. But I fell in love with you at first sight and couldn't bear to do so. After thinking about it, I decided to keep you in the manor. On one hand, I can be close to you all the time. On the other hand," I brushed away a lock of his hair, which had been hanging on his shoulder, and gave a sinister smile, "that General Shan of yours is truly a great man of untrammeled spirit. It'd be wonderful if I could make his acquaintance through you." Without waiting to see Tianchu's expression, I flicked my sleeves, turned around and laughed out loud. "You must be tired. Take a nap. When the moon is shining clear and bright, this young master shall be back to spend the night." I strode out of the chamber. The evening sun was half submerged in the horizon, and the rosy clouds were brilliant. I instructed the young maidservant, Bring some soup and tea snacks to young Master Yan. I swiftly returned to the bedchamber and downed 2 cups of tea. I touched my right arm, the one I had wrapped around Tianchu. A strange, indescribable feeling came upon me. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a little head poking out from the bottom of the door frame, peeking at me. It grinned at me with 2 missing teeth. It was this immortal lord's little nephew, Li Xixian's son, Li Jining. The mere sight of this trickster of a child was cause for a headache for everyone in the prince's manor. However, this immortal lord had scared him and Li Xiyuan's son, Jinshu, in the courtyard from the get-go. Subsequently, I was established as the Tiger Star incarnate. So every time he saw me strolling through the prince's manor, Jinshu would run from me, only daring to poke half a head out from his pillars and corners. This one, however, would diligently follow me. At first, following was all he did. Then, the little sneak started to throw pebbles at my turned back. There had been a day where I was sitting in a pavilion in the back garden when he rolled out from the undergrowth of grass and pounced on my knees. With round eyes, he very solemnly asked, "Little uncle, they all said you're a white tiger spirit. Is that a lie?" "White tiger star, not white tiger spirit," I had clarified. It was one thing for this immortal lord to have become a tiger star. What immortal dignity would I have left if I was downgraded to a tiger spirit instead? Li Jining puffed out his cheeks. Saying that little uncle is a white tiger spirit must be a lie. A tiger's face is round. Little uncle's face isn't round. Little uncle isn't a tiger. Tears brimmed in my eyes. How insightful was this child? To think that from top to bottom, no one in this manner compared to a child 7 or 8 years of age. I reached out to pet Li Jining's head. He immediately flashed his 2 missing upper teeth and scrambled up my knees. "Little uncle, you're not a tiger spirit, but can you tell stories of tiger spirits?" I smiled benevolently. "Yes, not just tiger spirits. Your little uncle can tell you stories of fox spirits, black bear spirits, spider spirits, and river deer spirits." Li Jining clutched the front of my clothes. "Black bear spirit. I want to hear about the black bear spirit." This immortal lord cleared my throat and began the story. By the halfway mark, Li Jining was already all sprawled on me, sleeping soundly, his saliva drooling all over my robe. Left with no choice, I carried him back to the inner courtyard and handed him over to the wet nurse. From then on, Li Jining glued himself to me, making his way to my courtyard once or twice daily. Presently, upon realizing I'd spotted him, Jining immediately covered the distance between me and the threshold of the door. He clambered up this immortal lord's knees. "Little uncle, I want to eat grilled bird eggs." My head ached. "There are no grilled bird eggs here. Go back and ask your mother for them. Have the kitchen grill quails for you." Jining shook his head. "Not grilled quail. There's a bird nest on the tree in the backyard. Little uncle, let's knock the bird's nest down, and we'll have bird eggs." This little brat sure knows a lot. Dealing with Tianchi Xing Jun earlier had already sapped me of energy, so how in the world would I have the strength to humor a child? I pulled a stern look. "Bah, knock down, my foot. What if you fall? Go back to your room and practice your calligraphy." Jining pouted, his little paws still tightly gripping my robe. "I'm not going back. I want to hear the story of the lizard spirit. Tell me, little uncle." "All right, then. In any case, this brat would definitely fall asleep midway into the story, and once he slept, this immortal lord could get my peace." Lizard spirit. How to go about spinning a yarn about a lizard spirit? As expected, Jining fell sound asleep midway through the story. I carried him out of the chamber. The wet nurse from the eldest branch of the family, having gotten accustomed to this ritual, was already waiting in the courtyard. She curtsied and greeted me with a smile. "So he's gone pestering third young master again." Then she took Jining and returned to my eldest brother's Shen court, and I finally got myself some peace and quiet. At the first sign of night, the lanterns sprang to life with their light. I finished my dinner, bathed, and changed my clothes, then summoned the maidservant from the side chamber to ask after the young master there. Seeing as it was almost time, this immortal lord ought to go and sleep with Tianchu. The maidservant answered, "The young master is in poor health, he only took 2 sips of tea in the evening, coughed for a spell, then passed out, he has just woken up," so this humble servant stepped out to warm up the tea for him. I made a sound of acknowledgement and trod lightly as I made my way to the side chamber. Upon hearing an object falling to the ground, I shoved the door open. In the dim yellow light, Mu Ruian was hanging from a ceiling beam, a strip of his white silk sash wound tightly around his neck. My heart dropped. I had not expected Tianchi Xingjun to be so fragile in the face of humiliation. I had merely shot off a few words in the afternoon, and that was all it took for him to harbor the intent to die. I scrambled to release him, bearing his body back to earth. If Mu Ruian died, how was I to explain this to the Jade Emperor? Mu Ruian lay limp and light in the crook of this immortal lord's arm, his eyes tightly shut, his complexion spotlessly pale. Tentatively, I held a finger under his nose. No breathing. No matter what I did, from pinching his philtrum to patting his back, it was to no avail. How abominable that those old men in heaven did not even consider this critical juncture. At this crucial moment, I still could not use even a fraction of my powers. Left with no choice, I steeled myself, and moved my lips to channel a breath of immortal air to him. Our mouths connected. Tianchu's lips were icy cold, but surprisingly soft. When I touched his lips, there came a prick at my conscience. This was quite the advantage I had taken of Tianchi Xingjun. Oh, well, just consider it his repayment to me for saving him twice. I pried Tianchi Xingjun's teeth apart with my tongue and channeled a breath of immortal air within. When finished, I raised my head to wipe my mouth. If Hengwen Xingjun were to learn of this matter, I would never hear the end of it. Tianchi drew in a breath, and his eyelashes fluttered. I thumped his back a couple times, and while his eyes opened slowly, he promptly broke into a coughing fit. I smiled savagely at him. Seeking death right under my nose? I went to such efforts to drag you back here. How could I let you die so easily? The Jade Emperor was not pulling his punches when it came to the first 20 years of tormenting. It did not take me much effort to pick him up and toss him onto the bed. Mu Ruian glared at me, eyes cold and harsh. Then, with the fleeting hint of a bitter smile in the corners of his lips, he shut his eyes. This immortal lord felt immensely heavy-hearted and miserable. Everyone said it was hard to be a good person, but in truth, it was even harder to be a villain. I could not bear to see Tianchu in his present state. Several thousand years ago, when I had first ascended the heavenly court, the heavenly envoy led me to call on the various immortals. It was among the floating clouds of the 9 heavens that I first met Tianchi Xingjun. He had just stepped out from the Baidu Palace. The other 6 mansions of the Baidu kissing the 7 stars of the Big Dipper followed behind him. In the silvery glow, I saw a poised, elegant figure with white robes and a jade hairpin. It was a sight one would not dare to gawk at, but could not help but want a glimpse of either. He was truly the finest specimen among the immortals. At the advice of the heavenly envoy, I turned to the side and waited respectfully. Then I kneeled and prostrated in greeting. This humble immortal is Song Yao, a newcomer to the heavenly court. Greetings to Xingjun. A gaze as clear and cold as stars stopped on me for a mere instant. He nodded and returned the greeting, and went on his way without exchanging a single pleasantry. Even the Jade Emperor did not put on that much air. The Tianchi Xingjun at that time was all lofty and aloof. Who would have thought he would be reduced to such a state now? What's more, it was this immortal lord who had caused this wretched sight before me now. Oh, what a sin! This immortal lord is committing a sin. The Jade Emperor is forcing this immortal lord to sin. It was with a deep bitterness that I continued to address him so ruthlessly. To think the young master of Prime Minister Mu's manor would find a rope to hang himself like a woman. Did you know? The tongues of hanged men will stretch at least 3 centimeters out, and their bowels will empty. The servants of my prince's manor would have to scrub the floor for half a day alone just to collect your corpse for you. Do you want your grandfather, uncle, father, and mother to see you as a hanged ghost in the underworld? Mu Ruian was as stupefied as wood. I removed his shoes and socks, shifted him to the inner side of the bed, and covered him with a thin quilt. Then I opened the door and called for another set of pillows and bedding. As 2 young maidservants entered carrying the bedding, the color drained from their faces at the sight of the still hanging sash. Putting on a frosty look, I instructed them to offload the bedding and remove it. The young maidservants, daring not to speak more than necessary, left with their heads lowered. I discarded my outer robe and shook open the quilt. To Tianchu, who looked to be dozing against the wall, I said, "Starting tonight, you'll sleep with me. Over time, you'll surely come to see me for the good person I am." The oil lamp went out, and the chamber fell dark. I lay on the bed and closed my eyes. The breathing of the man beside me was barely perceptible as he lay there, motionless. I thought Tianchu would have a hard time sleeping. The bandits had knocked him out for half a day in the mountain stronghold. After I spirited him to the eastern commandery manor, he had slept for yet another half day. Then, after his failed hanging attempt, he passed out again. All in all, he had slept the entire day away. I yawned and rolled over to face the room. Whether or not he could sleep was none of this immortal lord's concern. After all the muss and fuss today had been, this immortal lord's upper and lower eyelids yearned only to meet again. I knew only the stilling of my mind and evening of my breath. Then a mosquito-soft voice calling from overhead, "Song Yao Yuan Jun! Song Yao Yuan Jun!" I batted at the air, then covered my head. Only sleep mattered. A numbness spread from my chest to my limbs as I began to float. I opened my eyes just a crack, and was greeted by a golden glow. Floating in midair, I hurriedly averted my gaze to the world below. 2 dimly visible figures were motionless on the bed. I rose, higher and higher, passing through the roof beams and tiles before halting on the rooftop. Minga Sing Jun stroked his beard under the moonlight, beaming as he greeted me. "Song Yao Yuan Jun." Half propping my eyelids open, I sniped at him rather blearily, "With one book, you hold in your hands the fates of all beings. And yet, you still have the leisure to fuss over my mission and lift me out for chit-chat. Song Yao could not be more astounded by your divine skills. What gifted knowledge do you have to be summoning me at this hour?" Old man Minga beamed so hard, his eyes curved into slits. "Isn't it because you are only available at this time? When you return to the heavenly court, I'll send you a bed of clouds as an apology for disrupting your sweet dreams." "Yuan Jun, I saw all that happened in the evening." "Oh, did Minga Sing Jun see Tianchu hanging himself, or did he see me channeling a breath of immortal air into him?" I heaved a long sigh. "Just as well that you saw it. I was just about to bring this up with you. May I trouble you to pass on a message to the Jade Emperor? I beseech the Jade Emperor to assign another immortal to these heavenly tribulations. This humble immortal is unable to undertake this responsibility. Tianchu has a feisty nature, and he seeks death each time he is tormented. I may be acting on the Jade Emperor's orders, but who will be held responsible if Tianchu dies due to a momentary oversight? I'm not doing this anymore. That's precisely why I asked Yuan Jun yourself out tonight." Minga said. "The Jade Emperor has already cast a spell on Mu Ruian. Until he goes through all his love trials, he can't end his life. You can have your way with no holds barred and no misgivings." Good heavens! The Jade Emperor was another level of abhorrent if he prevented Tianchu from dying by his own free will. All he had done was have an illicit affair with Nanming Dijun, didn't he? Why punish him to such an extent? I returned to the chamber from the rooftop and repossessed Li Siming's body. Tianchu was still motionless beside me. What if this immortal lord were in his shoes? I shifted to the edge of the bed so that he had more space to himself. Then I faced outward, and fell into a sound sleep. The next time I opened my eyes, it was bright. I rose and flipped aside the quilt. Beside me, Tianchu was lost in slumber, his breathing was long and even. No doubt it was from his steadfast attempts to keep his eyes open until dawn, when his efforts only exhausted him further. I peered at his sleeping face. His expression was serene, his eyes closed in repose, his long brows relaxed. Having come this far, it had not been easy for him to get a good night's sleep. Gingerly, I left the bed and opened the door. Once the maidservant had brought water, I washed up and headed to the small hall for breakfast. It was hardly noon, and my bed's herring tryst with the frail young master I had abducted must have become common knowledge. While pacing in my courtyard, I noticed the young servants, maidservants, and wet nurses gathered in twos and threes, whispering furtively and occasionally sneaking glances toward the east wing of Han Court. The moment they saw me, they immediately dispersed. I just pretended not to have seen them. Homosexuality was nothing uncommon. Before this immortal lord's ascent, plenty of wealthy men and noble heirs kept male lovers. What's more today? There was no point in hiding it. I took the initiative to find Li Siyuan. Second brother, a handsome scholar, was brought here the day before yesterday. Your little brother took a liking to him on sight, and would like to keep him in my courtyard. What do you say? This must not have been Li Siyuan's first time hearing this, as he looked at me, his smile reserved. So, third brother swings this way. I didn't know at first either, I said. But for some reason, I couldn't resist wanting to tie him down the moment I saw him. Your little brother knows his origins are dubious. Although I'll keep him by my side, I'll also be sure to keep an eye on him and not forget to investigate him. Could you bear to kill him if you really did uncover something? Li Siyuan asked. I twitched my face, then said with a soft sigh, second brother knows my weakness well. If my investigation turns something up, I'd like to ask you to show mercy, and hand him to me so I can deal him a quick death. Don't torture him. Li Siyuan laughed, and came from behind his desk to pat my shoulders. I never expected you to be a tender-hearted romantic. I investigated the rest of the guards yesterday and found nothing of significance. Just keep him. When our father returns, I'll put in a good word for you. I hurriedly thanked him in delight. Thank you, second brother. Thank you so much. Don't just thank me, Li Siyuan said. How about treating me to a round of wine? You do me a favor at no cost to yourself, yet you still want to fleece me out of a round of fine wine. I called all my servants and maidservants attending before me and said it plain. From today onward, the young Master Yan in the East Wing is my man. Wait upon him as respectfully as you treat this young master. There must be no lapses. If I find out that you have uttered so much as a disrespectful word to young Master Yan, whether to his face or behind his back, or if you have been neglectful in serving him, I smiled coldly and released my grip on the cup. It fell to the ground and shattered into smithereens as I finished. You'll end up like this cup. Do you understand? My servants shook like leaves and prostrated themselves at my feet. Your wish is our command. Satisfied, I rose from my seat. This immortal lord was getting more and more adept at playing the villain. Of course, I did not forget to torment Tianchu Xingjun with this matter. This immortal lord swaggered into the East Wing chamber, where Tianchu was standing by the window. Old man Minga had commended me for channeling air to him I realized that I should go all out. So, I strolled over and half-wrapped Tianchu in my embrace. With a lascivious smile, I said, everyone in the prince's manor now knows that you're mine. I've already instructed the steward to swap in a big bed in the principal chamber. From now on, sleep with me in the main quarter. Mu Ruian's stiffened body quivered. He partially closed those clear, cold eyes of his. He gave a bleak laugh. Then all at once, he broke into a coughing fit and hacked 2 mouthfuls of clotted blood onto my sleeve. It was only after shoving me, staggering, that he said in an uneven voice, "I, Mu Ruian, was born a real man imparted with the teachings of wise men. I would rather die than be subjected to the humiliation of scoundrels like you." To my surprise, he moved to slam his head against the wall. Knowing that the attempt was futile, I was slow in reacting to this suicide attempt, maybe slower than I should have been. I grabbed his sleeve, but his forehead had already made contact. Fresh blood spilled onto the ground, and he passed out. Once more, I had gone too far. I shouted for the servants, who summoned the physician, who applied medicine to the patient and issued a prescription for more. Utter chaos all around. This immortal lord squatted by Tianchu's bed, feeling very despondent. It appeared that the Jade Emperor had not sent me down to torment Tianchu but for Tianchu to torment me. Case in point, right now. Tianchu, in his unconscious state, was clenching his teeth so tightly that he could not take in the decoction. This immortal lord could only drink a mouthful before feeding him through our mouths. Tell me, was he the one who got the short end of the stick, or me? Minga Xing Jun, that old geezer, had said that Tianchu could not die, easy for him to say. It would have been convenient if Tianchu died, just find a coffin to put him in, bury him, and that would have been that. When he fainted instead of dying, he was confined to his sickbed, waiting for me to wait on him. If you're so capable, why don't you, old geezer, try? This immortal lord did not dare to curse the Jade Emperor, so I released this barrage on Minga Xing Jun. For every time I cursed him old geezer I fed Tianchu 1 mouthful. A look askance revealed human figures through the door seams and paper windows, no doubt I had an audience of maids and young servants. Mere days ago, everyone in the prince's manor looked at this immortal lord, and saw an ill omen. After today, it was with eyes full of understanding, sympathy and admiration. Admiration, for being the love-struck romantic I was. Fearing that Tianchu would go banging his head against the wall again when he woke, I sprawled at the edge of his bed to sleep. The next day, I was a disheveled sight, looking neither human nor ghost. Several maids and young servants coaxed me to wash up and have my meal. With some effort, they tidied me up so that I looked halfway human. I made sure to feed Tianchu his medicine before noon. It was midway through that he woke up, and the revelation of how he was being fed filled him with such shame and resentment, he tried to commit suicide again. This time, it was by biting off his tongue. I had only just finished feeding him a mouthful of medicine. I barely had time to even raise my head, but I grasped his jaw, and in a moment of desperation, I stopped him by planting my mouth on his. My hand slipped, and his teeth clamped down firmly on my tongue. Blood spurted. The pain almost tore me apart. For several days, I lived with a swollen tongue and slurred speech. I could only drink cool tea, not even hot soup was an option. Perhaps Tianchu had let off some steam injuring this immortal lord, or perhaps he realized after several attempts to bite his tongue off that it was hopeless, but there was no further commotion from him. I was secretly rejoicing when the maidservant came in with the report, young Master Yan was not taking his medicine, eating a grain of rice, or drinking a drop of water. Good grief! He was on a hunger strike again. I rubbed my temples and slurred, let him starve. He won't starve to death anyway. That might have been the case, but Mu Ruian had been skin and bones to begin with. A few more days of this, and he would look like a skeleton. Heaven forbid he get fresh air in the courtyard at night, scaring everyone to death. So, I applied some cooling medicine to my tongue and made my way to the east wing again. Mu Ruian was breathing feebly, his face having lost so much color it was a sheet of paper. He had found a spot in a chair where he pretended to meditate when he saw me enter the chamber. I tried my best to enunciate my words. You have a death wish, but why can't you find a better way to die? A hunger strike, is it? This young master heard ghosts who starved to death don't pass into the underworld. They become wandering souls that devour other souls or the life force of other beings. Reuniting with your kin and General Shan a century later will be but a pipe dream. I turned to leave, and Tianjia suddenly spoke. Young Master Li knows quite a lot about the supernatural. I turned back and grinned. Rumors have it that this young master is the Tiger Star incarnate. Of course the Tiger Star would know a lot about the supernatural. The mere sight of Tianjia brought my tongue nothing but pain. There was no fun in saying more, so I threw a last quip and strode out the door. If you don't believe me, go ahead and starve to death. Come nightfall, the maidservant Luyu told me that young Master Yan was eating. This immortal lord was also having my meal then. On hearing the good news, I forgot to blow on my soup. I took a spoonful into my mouth, and it hurt so much that my face soon became a mask of agony. Luyu stood by my side as I suffered. With reddened eyes, she said, "Young master, everyone can see just how well you treat young Master Yan. This humble slave believes that as long as he is not a hard-hearted man, he will come to understand your sincere feelings for him." This immortal lord almost wept. My feelings for him. Oh, Jade Emperor! Was it really Tianjia you had sent me here to torment? Young Master Yan ate his meal. Young Master Yan took his medicine. This immortal lord's tongue healed. Young Master Yan's scars faded. Unable to seek the death he wanted, Tianjia was no different from a walking corpse. His eyes were hollow, and his expression, wooden. He did not cry, laugh, or speak. Instead, he put himself at others' mercy, letting them do as they wished to him. I shifted him into my bedchamber, where we ate and slept together. He did not eat much, and I did not force him. At night, we each slept on our own side of one large bed. He lay motionless on his side, and I paid him no attention. This went on for several days, and all this time, Mu Ruian was like a puddle of stagnant water, making neither waves nor ripples. Once, I saw him pluck up the pendant hanging on his chest, and it was only when he was looking at that piece of jade that there came a spark in his eyes. His emotions might have been as flat as a still surface of water, but I had waves to make. The Jade Emperor had sent this immortal lord down to inflict him with trials of love, not to wait on him every waking moment. These days, I could be found spouting sweet nothings as I held Mu Ruian in my arms. Mu Ruian, on the other hand, did not seem to be fooled. I spoke, he listened. He was about as responsive as he had been before. There was a day I set Mu Ruian in the back garden's lakeside pavilion. Knowing he disliked being perceived, I dismissed the attendants, instructing them to stay away unless the matter was important. Still, Mu Ruian was like a log. No matter what topic I broached, he remained silent and wooden. It was extremely boring. I spent half the day speaking to this wooden stake of a man until it parched me, but with no one around to attend to us, I had to go searching for tea myself. I returned with a teapot in hand, but stopped on a narrow path amid the flowering shrubs. It gave me a look into the pavilion from afar, where Mu Ruian was staring blankly at that piece of jade. This immortal lord was delighted. The moment to torment Tianjia was here. This immortal lord strode into the pavilion and set the teapot heavily on the stone table. In a frosty voice, I said, "What were you looking at just now?" Mu Ruian looked up at me. A hint of panic flashed across his face, and then he turned back into wood as he mildly replied, "The scenery." Letting out a savage smile, I yanked his left hand up and forcefully pried it apart. Holding the jade pendant by its string, I raised it high. "What is this?" "A common pendant and my family heirloom," Mu Ruian answered. I palmed the pendant as I held it behind my back. "A common pendant? You mean the common pendant Shan Shengling gave you, right?" This immortal lord had never heard the outrage of a cuckolded husband catching his wife in the act, so I gave my best approximation. I grasped Mu Ruian's frail shoulders and shook my head with a bitter grief. In what way am I, Li Siming, inferior to that Shan person? After all this young master has done for you, why are your heart and eyes filled with only that Shan Shengling? I admit these words were really a tad too gross, but at this moment, this immortal lord could think up no other tricks. I released my grip on him, took a step back, and spat venom. I can't tell which of your words are true and which are lies. Since this piece of jade is just a common pendant, I raised my hand and flung it toward the lake. The black dot arced through the air, and kicked up a spray of water. Mu Ruian's face turned deathly pale. He stood and laughed, bitterly. This humble one can't tell which of young Master Li's words are true and which are lies either. You keep me captive in your esteemed residence, but I can hardly hazard a guess as to your motives. I abducted you to torment you, and that is heaven's secret. Of course, you can't guess. Regardless of the intention you seem to harbor, you always act contrary to it. This humble one is merely a wanted fugitive of the imperial court, a worthless person much akin to rotten wood beyond saving. What is it about me that is deserving of such unrelenting and painstaking effort on your part? Oh, Tianshu, the unrelenting one making such painstaking efforts is his venerable the Jade Emperor. This immortal lord is merely acting on his orders. It's tough for me, too. Not breaking eye contact, Mu Ruian suddenly smiled. Young Master Li, you do not like men, right? Hey? You this immortal lord blanked out for a moment. Did he see through my act? I calmed myself. That was impossible. This immortal lord had been going all out playing this show, no way there could be a slip-up. Mu Ruian never once looked away as he leaned against the railing. His sleeves fluttered gently in the breeze, just like the high and lofty Tianjia Xingjun standing amidst the silvery clouds the very first time I went to the heavenly palace of the nine heavens. Young Master Li, is there anything in particular to be said about ghosts who drown to their deaths? Before I could return to my senses, Mu Ruian had already leaped over the railings and thrown himself into the lake. Oh, good heavens! Don't tell me old man Minga is sabotaging me behind my back? Why must Tianjia try to take his life every time I make my move? I stared at a lock of gradually disappearing black hair on the water's surface and thought, why not just let him have a soak? He will find out he can't die, then there will be no next time. Suppose I fished him out of the water. Suppose that after that, Tianjia Xingjun tried out 18 ways to commit suicide for a trial run, and after slicing his throat, jumping off the cliff, and consuming poison, he still did not die. My body and spirit might very well just disintegrate from the ordeal. The first immortal skill this immortal lord learned in the heavenly court was the art of parting water. Because, actually, this immortal lord has a phobia of water. I stared at the water's surface, feeling a little dizzy. It would not do to leave Tianjia down there either. This immortal lord, having attained the Dao so many years ago, had ventured the firmament up above and the yellow springs down below. What was there to fear in one lake? I flung off my outer robe and dove into the water. The lake water unceremoniously gurgled up along my nose and mouth, choking me until I felt dizzy and my vision blurred. I considered whether to stretch out my hands or my legs first. This was such a big lake, and I did not know where Tianjia had sunk. The roar in my ears grew louder, and my head felt heavier. Oh no! Li Ximing could not hold out any longer. A thin voice shouted in my ears, Song Yao Yuan Jun, Song Yao Yuan Jun, Tianjia Xingjun is here. All at once, my body became light. The lake water around me parted, opening up a large expanse of space in all directions. An old turtle at the bottom of the lake greeted me with a bow of its head. This humble deity, Xiao Zhen, is the steward of the creatures of this lake. Greetings to Yuan Jun. I had not expected the prince's lake to be inhabited by a water deity. More than that, I did not expect that I, the great Song Yao Yuan Jun, would nearly drown to death in this lake without my divine powers. Beside the old turtle, Mu Ruian lay with his eyes shut. The old turtle said, Xingjun has swallowed 2 mouthfuls of water. He has passed out, but he'll be fine after going ashore and catching his breath. This humble deity was a little tardy in saving him, and for that, I beg your pardon. I cupped my hands in greeting and said with an apologetic smile, Elder Zhen, you're too polite. If not for you, even I may have lost my life in this lake. Please excuse me for making a mockery of myself. Yuan Jun, you can't fully deploy your divine powers, that's why you are afraid of water. This humble deity has a water parting pearl here. If you don't mind this humble gift, please accept it, and you'll be able to come and go freely in the water. I said my thanks and put away the water parting pearl, after which I picked up Tianzhu in my arms and opened up a path to return to the banks. Then, supporting Mu Ruian's head in my palm, I began to channel a breath of immortal air in the way I was now too familiar with. I had only just pried his teeth apart with my tongue and transferred the second mouthful of breath when a voice suddenly piped up beside me. Little uncle, what are you doing? I jerked my head up, my face burning a little. Jinning sucked on his finger, his black, round eyes blinking as he stared at me. Jinshu, on the other hand, hid behind him, only half of his little face peeking out. I coughed once. This uncle fell into the water. Your little uncle is channeling air to him. Jinning tilted his head. Channeling air? What's that? I've seen Dad do that to Mom. Eldest uncle said it's called kissing, and you can only do it after getting married. Is little uncle married to this uncle? Why do you have to kiss? Why is little uncle calling it channeling air? This immortal lord laughed dryly. The thick skin I had cultivated for several thousand years nearly cracked. Ahem, about that. What little uncle did might look very much like kissing, but it's actually meant to save people. Only a man and a woman can get married, so how can little uncle and this uncle get married? So, this is called air channeling, not kissing. I raised a hand to stroke his head. Don't say a word of this to anyone else. Jinning's eyes shone. He puffed up his little chest and said, Little uncle, don't worry. I won't tell anyone. I get it now. It's called kissing between a man and a woman. Little uncle and uncle are both men, so it's air channeling. I choked on my saliva and nearly fainted. Jinning squatted down by my side. Smacking his fingers, he stared at Mu Ruian and said in all seriousness, Little uncle, I want to help channel air to this uncle too. Can I? This immortal lord almost choked with exasperation. I pulled a stern face and said solemnly, air channeling is a form of martial arts. You're still young, so you can't train it or use it. You'll naturally understand when you grow up. Little uncle is going to take this uncle back. Behave yourself and play here with your big brother. Picking up Mu Ruian, I scurried back to my courtyard. When I turned the corner of the trail and looked out the corner of my eye, Jinning was still standing in the same spot, looking at me with puppy eyes. Mu Ruian coughed out 2 mouthfuls of water on the bed in the bedchamber. After catching his breath, he finally came to. Sitting on the edge of the bed, I gazed into his eyes and pulled the quilt up for him. Ghosts that drown have bloated stomachs and swollen heads. They are the ugliest ghosts. Mu Ruian's eyes were pitch black and bottomless. I continued, ghosts that cut their own throat regenerate another mouth in their necks. Gruel that enters the regular mouth exits from the mouth in their neck. They cannot enjoy their offerings. Ghosts that jump off a cliff lose their 4 limbs and can only wriggle on the ground. Ghosts that consume poison have their faces scorched black. Blood trails from their 7 orifices. They cannot speak, and all they swallow and spit is miasma. Ghosts that burn to death retain their scorched look. Then, there are also ghosts that swallow gold. I smiled. So, if you want a smooth ride to see Yanwang the king of the underworld himself Buddha, or the Jade Emperor, you can only follow heaven's will and behave yourself while you wait for the ghost guards to come calling. Tianzhu stared unblinkingly at me, and I said in all earnestness, no more of this, all right. Mu Ruian was still looking at me in silence, a curious expression on his face. Being scrutinized in such a manner sent an unexpected pang of guilt through this immortal king. I could not help but say, "Don't worry, I." The door suddenly slammed open, and something lunged over. "Little uncle." I closed my eyes, dispirited. "Why is this little brat here? Didn't I tell you to go back to playing in the garden? Where's Jinshu? Be a dear, won't you? Little uncle is in the middle of something." Jinning pulled at the front of my clothes, wailing miserably. "Little uncle, it hurts." I pressed my throbbing temple. "Where does it hurt? Did you knock against something in the garden? Be a good boy and go look for your mother. Get her to call for the physician." Jinning pulled up my hand, using it to open his mouth wide. "Here, the tooth's shaky. It hurts." I felt the shaky molar. "You're growing out your milk teeth now. Once this one drops, you'll grow a new one in its place. How can changing out your milk tooth hurt?" Jinning clambered up my knees. "It didn't at first, but Dad said grandfather and uncle will be returning today, and there'll be wild deer meat to eat. I want to eat wild deer meat, but my tooth's shaky. It feels terrible. I want to pull it out." I thanked my lucky stars for attaining the Dao and ascending in my youth. Had I gotten married and sired such a child, I would have lost 10 years off my life just from how much he pissed me off. Jinning twisted around on my lap. Meanwhile, Mu Ruian lifted the quilt and sat up, and Jinning immediately turned to him. Blinking his eyes, he greeted, "Uncle." Mu Ruian raised his eyebrows, and a hint of a smile actually materialized on his face. Jinning immediately took to him like a fish to water and struggled to get off my lap. "Uncle, my tooth hurts." Mu Ruian asked in an affable voice, "Does it hurt a lot?" Jinning threw himself at the bedside and nodded his head vigorously. I caught the shine in his eyes as he looked at Tianshu, the way he seemed ready to crawl onto him, and was instantly alert. Mu Ruian's current body seemed like it had just been glued together. How could he withstand this brat's chubby body? Jinning's little paws crawled up Mu Ruian's knees. Blinking his watery, puppy eyes at him, he gaped his bloodthirsty mouth wide in an ingratiating grin. Between his teeth, there was even a silver thread of saliva. "My tooth hurts. Uncle, channel air to Jinning to cure it." I covered that disaster of a mouth. Expression frosty, I picked this harbinger of calamity up by the collar and lifted him out of the door. Jinning kicked out with both legs and yelled shamelessly, "Little uncle's a bad egg. Little uncle won't let uncle channel, MHMPH. I dragged Jinning to the yard. The little brat wailed aloud, his snot smearing all over this immortal lord. The maidservants on the walkway barely concealed their laughter. I pretended not to see and growled, "Where's the wet nurse? Men, send the little young master back to his room." 2 purse-lipped young maidservants came to coax the little scourge away. Someone hurried into the courtyard and kneeled beside this immortal lord. "Third young master, his lordship, and eldest young master are back. They have brought along a distinguished guest and are in the main hall right now. His lordship has instructed you to head for the main hall immediately." This immortal lord hastily changed my outer robe and hurried to the main hall. Sixian and Siyuan were both standing to the right of the main seat. A gentleman in an azure outfit was sitting on the guest seat, his ink-black hair half secured with a jade crown and half cascading down the sides of his shoulders. He was the very picture of carefree elegance. I strode across the threshold, and the prince said, "Why are you so late?" "That's just being a poor host to our honored guest. Here, let me introduce you. This young Master Zhao is an advisor in my employ. He will be living in the manor from now on. You must treat him with utmost respect. See that he is well attended to." The young master in azure stood. The sight both startled and delighted me, like the brilliant bloom of 3,000 peach blossom trees sweeping in the spring breeze. His smile was soft amidst the magnificence of the 3,000 peach blossom trees. "This humble one is Zhao Heng. Greetings, young Master Si Ming. End chapter.